Hello everyone and welcome to another very nice game from the 2019 Isle of Man chess tournament. A lot of you have requested it, and again for very good reasons, so thank you for that. It's Viswanathan Anand versus Vladimir Fedoseev, and let's just dive straight into it. And also I hope you are having an excellent weekend. So, with the white pieces, Anand opens with e4. We have c5 by Fedoseev, the Sicilian defense. We have knight to f3, knight to c6, and d4. So just going for rapid development. We have c captures, knight captures, and the queen to b6 now. Asking, do you want to go for some bishop to e3, queen captures on b2 ideas, or do you want to continue the game in a different fashion? We have knight to b3, not allowing the trade. Anand prefers to keep the pieces on the board, and also now the bishop can be developed. We have e6 by black, preparing to develop the dark square bishop. Also d5 might be an idea in the future. And knight to c3. Anand continues development. We have queen to c7. The bishop is coming to e3 at some point, so you don't want your queen on b6, and also it prevents the bishop from being developed to the much more active f4 square. With f4 by Anand now, and d6. And here we have bishop to e3. There is a game where queen to e2 was played, but bishop to e3 is a new move in the position, and it is already as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. And, very often when we have a completely new game from such an early stage in the game, things tend to get a bit crazy. So let's see if this is one such game. We have knight to f6, Fedoseev continues development with bishop to d3, just developing a piece, defending the e4 pawn, and the bishop to e7, preparing to castle kingside, whereas Anand goes queen to f3 and leaves the option of castling both queenside and kingside. With knight to b4, now Fedoseev plays with the knight one more time in the opening. He wants to grab the light square bishop here, and eliminate Anand's bishop pair. With castles by Anand, Anand goes for the kingside castle, and now bishop to d7. And here a3. Anand says, okay, I'm going to give up the bishop pair, I'm going to improve my pawn structure in the center, and also I'm getting the open file for my rook. We have knight captures on d3, we have c captures on d3, and now comes queen to c6. With the idea that after the rook comes to c1, you want to transfer your queen over to the a6 square, which will sort of not waste time as the d3 pawn is not defended. So rook a to c1, just continuing development, a very nice square for the rook, and queen to a6. And here Anand says, your king is still in the center of the board, your pieces aren't really coordinated just yet, your bishop pair is still on the 7th rank, and I don't think you will go after this d3 pawn. So here Anand goes g4, he prepares g5, and he is correct to do so. If, for example, if queen captures on d3, yes, you do grab a pawn, but rook f to d1 pushes the queen back, and after queen to a6, now g5 comes, and after the knight moves somewhere, let's say knight to g8, f5, and the white will get a deadly attack for this d3 pawn, and black just cannot afford such a powerful attack. So after g4, we have bishop to c6, now getting the bishop to this much better diagonal, also preventing e5 now as the e pawn is pinned, and g5 now by Anand. Pushing the knight back, we have knight to d7, and now d4. So the d3 pawn no longer a target, and you have d5 prepared in some lines. So bishop to b5, not allowing d5 to come with an attack on the bishop. Also, you are now attacking the rook on f1. Rook to f2, Anand just gets it out of the way, and only now does Fedoseev castle. And Anand doesn't feel like waiting any longer. The rook is still on a8, the queen is oddly placed on a6, the bishop on b5, attacking who knows what. So here Anand continues the attack on the king side with f5. And here bishop to d8. You don't want to allow f6 to come with an attack on the bishop. This way, after bishop to d8, now Anand could play f6, but after g6, okay, you have queen to h3, you could go for this mating idea, but then black can play h5, and after captures en passant, king to h7, create a blockade using Anand's pawns. Anand would still be much better here, but Anand finds a different idea. He says, I can always push f6, there's no rush. First, I want to maximize the activity of my pieces. Knight to d2. Now Anand is preparing at some point to push this pawn to e5 and to create the e4 square for the knight. With bishop to d3 now, If the e5 pawn is pushed, then there also will be a double attack on the f5 pawn. So here Anand has a couple of ways he could deal with the bishop to d3 move. He could go knight to a2 followed by knight to b4 with a double attack on the queen and the bishop. Also queen to h3 is an idea. Getting the queen out of the way and preparing f6 once again, but Anand chooses a different, more forcing line. E captures on f6. With f captures on e6, and now comes queen to g4 with threatening queen captures on e6 with check. Fedoseev captures on f2. Now you cannot capture first with check because then black just brings the rook back. Rook to f7 blocks, so you would lose a rook there. So we have king captures on f2 first, and now knight back to f8, defending the e6 pawn. And now d5. Here Anand says, okay, I'm attacking your e6 pawn twice. Also, I want to get this diagonal for my bishop. So Fedoseev, of course, prevents both ideas with e5. And here Anand just continues with h4. We have g6 here, kind of preventing h5, but not really. Anand still pushes it. We have h5, g captures, queen captures, and now bishop to b6. Here, with ideas of just trading off the dark square bishop, and if the queen ever moves from this diagonal, then also ideas like bishop to e2 come to mind. If you can somehow bring the bishop over to help out with the defense of the king side, it would be great for Fedoseev. We have queen to h3 for Anand, and now keeping an eye on the bishop on e3, and also if the knight moves, you also have some queen to e6 ideas. So we have rook to e8 now, preventing that, and knight to d1 now, adding another defender to the bishop. And also now you have to be very careful if the rook moves, for example, from the back rank. Rook to c8 could be an idea. So definitely an excellent file for the rook. We have bishop to e2 now, putting pressure on the knight here, but also just preparing bishop captures here, and then king will not be very likely to capture. So after queen captures, the idea is just bishop back to h5 to g6. So if you could get this bishop to g6, it would be a very nice defending piece. So king to e1, here Anand unpins, so now the bishop can also move, and bishop to d4 now, just keeping the tension, and Anand continues to bring his pieces into more active squares. Knight to f2, and here the best idea for Fedoseev is just bishop captures on e3, queen captures on e3, and bishop back to h5, where you will not have options of continuing the attack. For example, you have to be very careful. If queen h3, you go after the bishop, just queen to e2 is checkmate. So here black would also get some counterplay, and Anand would have to figure out a way how to continue here. But Fedoseev first decided to play rook to e7 to bring yet another defender over to the king side. Also to prevent rook to c7. He thought maybe rook to c7 was a bigger threat than rook to e7, but it's actually not. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the best plan for Anand in this situation. While I give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding such an active, nice plan for Anand. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, yes, rook to c8 is a very nice move, but Anand chooses the more forcing bishop captures on b4. We have e captures and only now rook to c8. And rook to c8 comes with a very deadly threat. For example, if Fedoseev continues with something like d3 or plays a slow move, then Anand has the plan of not queen f5 followed by captures on f8, because you can block that with rook to f7. The real threat for Anand here is queen to e6 check, and it's just a wild idea. Of course, the knight cannot capture because it's pinned, and after the rook captures, you get d captures on e6, and there's no defense against e7. Rather, there is. You cannot go here. You have to go to g7, but then still e7, and now knight has to move, or you don't move the knight, and then the pawn captures it, for example, knight e6, and then you just bring a queen to the game. And again, there's not much you can do here with black. If knight g5 check, queen f8 check, and you are in trouble. King g6, queen to f5 check, king will go to h6, and now just rook to g8. There really is nothing you can do here. Whatever you try, knight f3 is an attempt, but just knight captures, and you don't even have queen to a5 check because the queen covers the a5 square. So rook to c8 with the deadly idea of queen to e6, but Fedoseev prevents it. We have rook to f8. Now queen to e6 will not be all that impressive, but Anand continues the attack with e5. So what do you do here? Of course, you don't want to allow e6, so Fedoseev captures once, and now knight f to e for the e4 square has been cleared for Anand's knight. So again, the best for Fedoseev is queen to d3. This is the last chance for him, and if queen captures, bishop captures, you have to allow knight to f6 check, where you pretty much have to give up the exchange. If you don't, if you play king g7, then this knight is coming to f3 to e5, and then the two knights will be really deadly. Queen to d3, the best for Fedoseev. He decided to play h5, and then Anand just captured. G captures on h6, and here we have rook to f4. Again, I would ask you to pause the video, and I will. In fact, I will. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the way to end this game for Anand. While I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding the nicest possible way to end the game for Anand. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, a lot of moves are winning here. If you found h7, that move wins. If you found rook captures on f8, that also wins. If you found the d6, just preventing the queen from getting into the game, that is also very nice. So I will show this rook captures on f8 as it is just a brute force line. Rook captures on f8, and now queen to g2. With this, you are able to infiltrate. King to f7, and now queen to g7 check. King to e8, and now d6. Again, not allowing the queen to help out with the defense. The threat is queen e7 mate. There's nothing to do here. Rook f7 you can block, but then just knight f6 check. You cannot capture because of queen e7 mate, so you have to move the king. And now the pawn and the knight control all the squares in front of the black king, so now it's pretty straightforward. Check, block, and this is mate. But Anand went for a much more stylish idea. He didn't go for the brute force line. He played the much nicer queen to e6 check, and it was in this position on move 37 that Vladimir Fedoseev resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. If you accept the queen trade, queen captures, pawn captures, it's a similar idea. There's no defense against e7. Again, rather there is, you have to move the king, and then after e7 comes, you will either allow this capture, or you will get a queen into the game. So it's better to prevent the queening, and then you just get e captures on f8, bringing a queen into the game, rook captures, and you are not up just a whole rook, but also a piece and the rook. So of course, completely winning. And after queen to e6 check, if you don't want to trade queens, you don't really have any other good options. You could block rook to f7, but then just knight to f6 check, king to h8, and now just queen captures on f7, and there is no defense against queen to g7 mate. There is no even there's no way to even make the game last longer. So after queen to e6 check, Fedoseev resigned, and excellent victory for Viswanathan Anand, which also brings him, I believe, to 5.5 points. So regarding the standings, I will always put a link in the description below with the standings on Chess24, where you can just scroll through all of the results. But I will mention that the current leaders with 6 points are Fabiano Caruana, Anton David Guijarro, and Levon Aronyan. So 3 of them with 6 points. Guijarro will face Aronyan in the next round, and Caruana faces none other than Magnus Carlsen. So we will have in today's game Magnus versus Caruana, world number 1 versus world number 2. So definitely gonna be very exciting, or not. We'll just have to wait and see. Will we see some leftovers of the World Chess Championship preparation, or maybe something completely different? And with 5.5 points, following the leaders are Van Gaal, Kirill Alexeyenko, Parham Maksudlu, Vladislav Kovalev, Magnus Carlsen, Nikita Vityugov, Sergei Karyakin, Hikaru Nakamura, Viswanathan Anand, and Boris Gelfand. So anyone still has an opportunity, and 3 more games to go. If Anand wins all 3 games that follow, we might see Anand in the next candidates tournament, which would be completely crazy. But you know, it's chess; anything can happen. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Simon Richardson, Richard Yarnell, and Chris Picard for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. Sorry, I forgot Thomas Vivian and David Odlum, also you gentlemen as well. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing the coverage of the Isle of Man chess tournament. Continue to check up on your wonderful suggestions, and well, of course, everything else that happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your weekend.